If you're planning to spend an extended period in this place, you might want to consider some health precautions, like getting your wisdom teeth removed or even having an appendectomy in advance. There are absolutely no reptiles or amphibians here, and any land mammals were brought in exclusively by humans. It hasn't rained here for nearly 2 million years, yet at the same time, 80% of the world's fresh water reserves are stored here. Antarctica, the coldest and arguably the most mysterious continent on the planet. Over the last century, humanity has studied the surface of Antarctica quite extensively, but we all know that the most interesting stuff is usually hidden deep beneath. When scientists decided to look below the thick ice cover of Antarctica, what they found surprised not only ordinary people like me, but also the researchers themselves. So, what exactly is hidden deep beneath those enormous layers of ice? For a long time, scientists believed that under the immense thickness of ice, there wasn't anything particularly interesting. Maybe just a few scattered pockets of subglacial water. However, the expectations researchers had in the 1990s were surpassed. It turns out that under the Antarctic ice, there's an entire lake, and it's quite large, about 15,000 square kilometers, which is roughly 1.5 times the size of the island of Cyprus. The lake's depth reaches 1,200 meters, which is only 442 meters less than the deepest lake on the planet, Lake Baikal. Since this reservoir was discovered near the Russian Vostok station, the lake has been named Lake Vostok. This gigantic lake is hidden beneath a massive layer of ice, 3,623 meters thick. Because of this, researchers didn't expect to find even the smallest signs of life in such harsh conditions. After all, the temperature near the lake reaches -89 degrees Celsius. The pressure from the ice exceeds that found on the frozen crusts of Jupiter's moons, and sunlight never penetrates the surface of the lake. Moreover, the concentration of nitrogen and oxygen is 50 times higher than that of ordinary freshwater lakes. Very few living organisms on Earth could survive in such an extreme environment. Yet despite these odds, scientists still managed to find life in such extreme conditions. And not just any life, it was something completely different from anything we had seen before. Researchers discovered a new type of bacteria, which they named W123-10. The DNA of this organism is only 86% identical to other living beings on Earth. The reason for this is that the lake had been isolated from the rest of the world for millions of years, so the bacteria there evolved separately from all other living organisms on our planet. Further studies revealed that there were traces of around 3,500 species of living organisms in the lake. This number is debated by some scientists, but the mere existence of diverse forms of life in such an environment led researchers to a very important hypothesis. Since there are likely subglacial lakes under the ice on Mars and Jupiter's moon Europa, it's quite possible that life could exist in those places too. By the way, Lake Vostok is far from the only subglacial lake. Whillins and Ellsworth are two other large lakes in Antarctica. According to John Priscu, a polar ecologist from the University of Montana, the total number of ice-covered lakes could reach 400. However, not all of the cavities beneath the Antarctic ice are filled with water. One such place is located under the glaciers of Marie Byrd Land. This is the Bentley Subglacial Trench, which is the deepest continental point on Earth not filled with liquid water, about 2,540 meters below sea level. Similar discoveries were made using space-based sensors that scan the Antarctic landscape in both directions. It turns out that the ice is distributed very unevenly. The ice in East Antarctica is slightly thicker, ranging from 40 to 48 kilometers, while in the western part of the continent, the ice thickness varies between 19 and 35 kilometers. This unevenness is due to the fact that beneath the East Antarctic ice lies an entire graveyard of sorts. consisting of the remains of the ancient supercontinent Gondwana. Scientists refer to these remains as cratons, which are the stable, rocky cores of continents that have survived hundreds of millions of years of Earth's destructive tectonic activity. There are at least 3 such cratons in East Antarctica. One closely resembles the rocks of Australia, the second resembles India, and the third resembles the seabed. These fragments may have come together 1 billion years ago when the supercontinent Rodinia formed, or perhaps 500 million years ago with the emergence of Gondwana. In either case, the cratons were part of the continents that formed after Gondwana broke apart 160 million years ago. Scientists didn't limit their research to observations from space and decided to drill a hole to study Antarctica's secrets more closely. The research team used a special drill 60 centimeters wide that uses hot water. With this tool, after 63 hours of continuous operation, they managed to drill a hole 2,152 meters deep. They then measured the water pressure, the ice temperature, and the degree of ice deformation. With this data, scientists hope to determine when the Antarctic ice sheet last disappeared and when it might happen again. Additionally, the researchers plan to drill several more holes. However, some holes appear in Antarctica without human intervention. A few years ago, the world was alarmed by a massive hole around 9,600 square kilometers in size, nearly twice the size of the state of Rhode Island. Scientists hadn't seen such large holes since the 1970s, so they couldn't immediately pinpoint the cause of this hole, which researchers dubbed the wormwood. However, they soon found an answer. It was caused by a cyclone in September 2017. Warm and cold air currents collided at the South Pole, resulting in the formation of turbulent winds reaching speeds of up to 117 kilometers per hour. These powerful gusts created giant waves up to 16 meters high, which in turn pushed massive chunks of ice, forming a colossal hole. Additionally, the strong winds brought warm water into the frigid Lazarev Sea, where massive ice sheets exist. As a result, the ice began to melt, contributing further to the appearance of this hole. Soon, it's expected to expand to over 95,000 square kilometers, roughly the size of Ireland. Torge Martin, a meteorologist and climate modeler at the Helmholtz Center for Ocean Research in Kiel, Germany, believes that the number of cyclones triggering these holes will only increase in the future. At the same time, due to climate change, the refreezing of these holes will become much slower, accelerating the ice melt in Antarctica. However, Diana Francis, an atmospheric climate specialist, suggests there's no need to be overly alarmed. In fact, she argues that the formation of these holes actually enhances circulation between the ocean and atmosphere. And for Antarctic animals like penguins and seals, these holes provide new sources of food. Nevertheless, Francis doesn't dismiss the fact that the large size of these holes affects ocean circulation, which could lead to global climate changes. For this reason, scientists will continue to monitor from space to keep an eye on the condition of this icy continent. One such observation took place in 2019 and brought some hopeful news. Researchers discovered a geological structure similar to a mountain that separates the western and eastern parts of Antarctica. This ridge acts as a shield for Antarctica's largest glacier, the Ross Glacier, preventing warm water from entering and stopping large ice chunks from drifting into the ocean. Without this dividing line, the rate of subglacial Antarctic water flowing into the ocean would increase by 20%. Which could lead to a global sea level rise of 11.6 meters. But this doesn't mean we're entirely in the clear. Right next to this massive glacier, another hole exists, which causes significant melting of the glacier during the summer months. Therefore, it seems highly likely that the complete melting of Antarctica is only a matter of time. Despite Antarctica being so far from most of us, Our future is deeply tied to this continent. It holds 80% of the world's freshwater reserves, and if this ice were to melt into the ocean, even cities far from Antarctica could find themselves submerged underwater.